Hello and welcome to Hot Thoughts Volume 2 of Season 2. Super excited to keep Season 2 rolling as we continue the conversation with the spicy sauces and the spicy conversation. And so this week, kind of excited to get to host alongside Lydia. So you saw her probably twice last season and help with the Double Dip podcast between seasons, but kicking off her Season 2 hosting debut alongside me. And so we're going to be diving into the Enneagram this week, which we're super excited about. We were talking before how much engagement we had. I mean, people were all about this episode before it even started, more so than we'd ever had before. And Lydia, I know you're probably excited because this is the episode you've been dreaming of.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. Ever since Danny was like, hey, do you want to co-host with me Season 2? And we started like brainstorming ideas, like I was like, I know that this might feel a little cliche right now because it feels like it's everywhere, but it's everywhere for a reason. So I was like, let's talk about it. Let's get into it. And Danny was if I recall, Danny, you can correct me if I'm wrong. You were a little like, yeah, but I don't really know anything about it. And I was like, that's great. This is going to be awesome.
Yeah, I think that's right. I was I was hopefully apprehensive.
Yes. So we're excited to be on with you guys tonight. Thank you so much to Liz and Kyle and Becky for being with us. It's going to be an amazing time. We've got our hot sauces ready. Are you guys ready for some hot sauces?
Indeed.
I don't know where your spice level is at here. Like, I didn't really gauge when we invited you on, like, if you can handle heat or if we're going to, like, I literally have one, or is it Kyle, you have one called the sissy sauce?
Yes, I do. She gave me the one that was extra hot habanero, and I decided to switch that one out because it wasn't going to go well.
So yeah, we're gonna pick. Yeah, he gave me this habanero. I don't know about for you guys, but that one kind of like does me in. Like just habaneros in general, like jalapenos. Habanero is gonna be. Yeah, it's gonna be fun. So yeah, Danny, what do you got going on tonight for sauces? I'm excited.
Yeah, I got some. I actually, I went lighter because I had spicy food yesterday. Just a rookie mistake. You think I've been doing the show long enough to know that I shouldn't do that. But, well, hey, so we are close, I think, to kind of our critical mass. And so what I was saying is we know kind of these guests, but maybe those watching don't. And so why don't we do a quick introduction? And Lydia, even for you, just because you're hopping back on, maybe a quick introduction for yourself as well, just to reintroduce yourself. But Liz, why don't we start with you and we'll go kind of around the horn and end with Becky.
Great. Yes, my name is Liz Simmons. I am currently living in Newburgh, Oregon, and it's just starting to rain outside. This is water's falling from the sky in the middle of the fire.
Yay!
I am
great.
I'm ordained in the Free Methodist Church. I'm currently the director of residence life at George Fox University. I have my Doctor of Ministry from Portland Seminary. Love all things spiritual formation. And I'm in this conversation. I love the Enneagram. I love tools that help me know myself in my inner world better. So love to be a part of the conversation.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thanks, Liz. Yeah, so Lydia, pastor at a church in Hillsboro, right outside of Portland, Oregon, and I am excited to be a co-host on Hot Thoughts. It's going to be great, and yeah, I have a strong George Fox background as well. We were kind of joking beforehand because we're like all have a connection to George Fox in one way or another, even though we haven't like all been there at the same time. So, George Fox is a great place for, I think that was the beginning of my more like spiritual formation journey as well. So got my master's at the seminary, which is how I know Becky. And I'm just excited to be with you all tonight. My husband is going to introduce himself next as a special guest, and we have one son, Everett. So that's a little bit about me.
Wow, awesome.
All right. My turn. So I'm Kyle. As Lydia said, we're married, live in Hillsboro. I currently work at FedEx, worked there for about 9 years now, a few different capacities. Got my master's at George Fox as well. Got my MBA last year and used to be one of Danny's roommates. So I got drug along into this conversation, but I'm really excited. Yep. Love the Enneagram. On the early stages of my journey with it, but pretty excited to talk about it with you guys.
Cool. Yeah, we're excited to have you.
And I'm Becky Grizel, and I'm way out on the East Coast in Greenville, South Carolina tonight. And I did all of my schooling out at George Fox, and also got my MDiv with Lydia. And then I went on and got my doctorate of ministry. I'm a spiritual director, and I have been certified or whatever in the Enneagram, and I work with people in spiritual direction with their Enneagram numbers, and I do one-offs, and the Enneagram has been probably one of the most catalytic tools for learning to understand myself and God and other people, and I have a deeper capacity to love other people and myself well. And the Enneagram has given me an understanding of who I am and who others are and what's important to them. So I love the Enneagram. I love it.
Well, we're going to unpack that love the further we get into this. So I'm excited about that. And little known fact about Kyle and I when we were roommates, I decided not to get the second half of our bunk bed. So I just slept underneath his bed on a mattress. So that's what our college experience was like. It was a great time.
Oh, it was a great time. Yeah.
And so before we get into our first question.
Wait. No. Danny, you got to tell them that you guys got cats together from the same litter. Like, who does? Because I convinced them. You totally, yeah. So there was this cat that lived under someone's porch, and we got a call or something. I got a text from someone was like, "Do you know anyone who wants cats?" And I'm like famous for rescuing animals, and so I was like, "Yeah." And so I basically made Danny and Kyle get baby kittens from the same litter. So anyways, I just think it's hilarious. Roommate cat.
We were the two best friends that ever did live when we were roommates. We had a great time. So with that, as we dive into the first question, before we do, I want to get to know our sauces. And so we may all have the same one, but so I have the thought sauce, our Hot Thoughts brand sauce. Is that what's everyone rocking for the first one? Liz, are you on that as well?
Yep.
Yeah, Liz and Becky, Kyle and Lydia, you didn't get yours in time. That was my fault. Or did you get yours in time?
Oh,
no,
the UPS guy just pulled up, so I'm going to go see if that might be it real quick. So.
Oh, no. That's outstanding. If it was FedEx, awesome. It would have been there already. That was my fault.
That's right. It's because Kyle's like, you sent it UPS? Like, what a rookie move.
I know. Well, why don't we do this? Why don't we sauce up our stuff while Kyle gets that going? And then I'll ask us our first question. And Liz, after you take a bite, you can kick us off. And so I'm going to put my sauce on here. And after, even before you answer the question, I'd love to know what you guys think of the sauce. We always like to find out if people like it or not. So, hey, that's for me. That's definitely the one. And so as you take your bite, the first question is this. How did you discover the Enneagram? So for me, I know like I stumbled across it during my ordination process. Like it had been around forever, but they kind of asked me to use and dive into it. And so for me, that's how I came across it. But Liz, how did you come across the Enneagram?
Yeah, it was about, it's got a little bit of kick to it. That's a good warm up.
Oh, it's got a lot of kick afterwards.
A little bit after.
It's on the back end.
It's the back end, yeah. 10 years ago, I kind of stumbled my way into it. I'm not typically somebody who appreciates feeling boxed in by things. We'll probably get into that later in the conversation. So the Enneagram is not typically something that I would, I think oftentimes when I hear people talk about the Enneagram, they're like, I hate things that put me in a box. Like I was that person. A mentor of mine kind of introduced it to me about 2 years ago, and I remember taking the test and being like, "Oh my goodness, this is reading that knows who I am." Like, and so it's been a 10-year journey of different iterations and diving deeper and peeling back layer after layer. I feel like with the Enneagram, every time I feel like I know it just well enough, there's another layer that gets peeled back, and so. Yeah, it's been the last decade. I feel like it has changed my world and my relationships. So good things.
That's awesome. Kyle, what about, you kind of stumbled across it recently. So how does it come into your life?
Yeah, so my wife is, she has a 3-inch binder of different assessments she's taken over her lifetime. So she's pretty intense about them. And she's been talking about it for a little over a year now, and someone from church, they were talking about it together, and I just tuned it out completely. Not interested. I was like, not another one. I don't need another one to get into. And then about 6 months went by, and she's like, I think you need to actually get into this. So I took an assessment, and I haven't looked back since. I've read quite a few books and listened to an incredible number of podcasts at this point. So, like I said, pretty new on the Enneagram journey, about 6 months in, and trying to figure it out from here.
Yeah.
I would like to say that he knows more than I do about it, though. Now, like, that's what was so hilarious. Like, dragging your feet, and now you're like, he is. Like, I'm like, you know way more than I do. And then did we not have a conversation where I said, can we take a day where we don't talk about the Enneagram?
Yep. You brought that on yourself for sure. But
oh my gosh.
Well, Becky, you're our professional. You're our consummate pro here. I mean, so what do you got for us? How did you come across it?
In seminary, because they had us do it in seminary, right, Lydia? That's how I did it. That was the first one, and it was literally no holds barred. And the reason I liked it is because it was dynamic. It didn't put me in a box. I felt like some of the other ones put me in a box, and this is absolutely dynamic, and it moves, and it grows, and you grow, and it is literally this transformative tool that I just found to be so different. And I don't really call it a personality test,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's how I came into it, was in seminary.
That's awesome. And I would say for those watching, drop in the comments, let us know how you found it. We would love to know how everyone comes to the journey and the exploration of self, and specifically through the Enneagram very differently. And so let us know in the comments kind of how you came about it. And so, but with that, thanks, guys. I mean, I think it's so interesting to think about how we got there. But the questions and the wings, they get spicier. And so what is your second sauce as we get ready to go into the next one? I have another one from our same company, actually. So it's called their Kilauea, and it's ghost pepper sauce. So I'm excited to give it a go.
I got a classic Frank's.
You're going for it right at the beginning.
I'd put this on bologna. I put this on any meat, and it's golden.
Yeah. Thanks is outstanding.
I didn't know anyone ate bologna still. Like, I thought it was like.
That's funny.
Go ahead.
That's funny. I've got my sissy
Kyle?
sauce here. So it's Chipotle. Lydia does not like Chipotle, so I swapped out this one for her.
Awesome.
I have tiger sauce.
This is sissy sauce, whatever.
No. I have, we're the land of the Clemson Tigers. And so there was one at the store that was the tiger sauce. So I have the tiger sauce in honor of the Clemson Tigers.
Awesome. And Lydia, before you take us into the next question, what do you have?
I have Fire on the Mountain, which is a local Portland wing place. But it's called the soon-to-be famous spicy peanut sauce. So
yeah, favorite wing place in all of Portland.
So,
all right, well, let's take a bite.
While you all are taking your bites. Well, kind of, we asked you how did you discover the Enneagram, but we definitely want to know as we get into this conversation what your Enneagram number is. So if you'll start by sharing your number before you also answer this next question, which is what has been the hardest aspect of the Enneagram for you to grasp? So that could be that you can take that a lot of different places. But please start by sharing. We want to hear your numbers. And actually, Danny, I want to hear yours too. Yeah. I'm sure other people do. So you don't have to answer the second question, but Danny, why don't you start with your number, and then Liz will go to you to do your number and answer the question.
Yeah, you are right. Many people do want to know. It's a question of great debate. I think I'm a 7 with an 8 wing, though I don't fully understand what the wings mean. And so I think Becky at some point will tell me more about what that means and how. But my archetype I heard is the opportunist, is what a 7-8 wing is. But I don't know who makes these things. And so that's what I heard. That's what I got.
Good. I am an 8 wing 7. So, cousins, basically. Let's see, the hardest part for me to grasp about my type or the Enneagram itself?
Well, for the Enneagram itself, we are going to talk about your type as well. So you can answer both.
For the Enneagram itself, I don't know. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I felt like maybe it's a rare experience and maybe it's an 8 thing, but I'm a very all or nothing person. And so there haven't been a lot. Yeah, oh, you're laughing. Okay, that's good.
That's an 8 thing for sure.
Yes. So I think for me, there's been a lot of growth and development of learning like the cognitive pieces of the Enneagram, but I cannot express how much that type fits me. So I think learning about the wings and the subtypes along the way, I mean, those were just, deeper iterations of it. But I think the most difficult thing to grasp was the reality that my everyday interacts, like my type shows up in my everyday, every moment I feel like is present. And so I think once I, kind of wrap my head around that, like I feel like the growth has been deeper and deeper. But I think, anybody who's new to the Enneagram, like just the subtypes and the triad, I mean, if you get deep level 7 on the Enneagram, people are like, what? The triads? And there are all these different combinations of 3 that are happening. So yeah, I think that's probably the hardest part for me, but my type just fits who I am so much that, I don't know, I'm just like ready to roll.
So with that, and I'm going to ask all of you this as a follow-up question. So don't worry, you can start thinking about your answers, Kyle and Becky, but what in your types has been like what's something that you like hate about me? Like, is there something that like, man, I wish that wasn't true about me, but it is?
Yeah, I think, well, it's interesting because I feel like I could answer that question both like externally to myself and internally. I mean, the way that people perceive me as like a rabble rouser, like I got to be a quiet act. Like, I hate that I'm perceived that way, but it's so true. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, I hate that. Or people oftentimes are like, will say they're intimidated by me. And like, I think for me, because the 8-ness, there's like there's a inner child in there that I feel like I really resonate with. And so when people perceive this exterior being so hard edged and like, I don't know, like they want to just go toe to toe with me, like they're expecting a fight. And I'm like, actually, I just want to have a conversation. And so I think sometimes it's the stereotypes coming toward me that are really difficult. On another level, I think just being able to be in my everyday and not need the intensity that is required of like existing in a healthy way in my world. Those are some of the pieces. I don't know. There's a lot there, but yeah.
That's good.
So good. So good. And just so you all know who are listening, because we don't expect you to know what there's 9 numbers on the Enneagram. If you're like, this is new to you and you're tuning in, I don't want you to feel totally left out right now. So an 8 is known, that the term that I've used, and Becky, you could probably correct me too on any of this, is the challenger is the term that I've heard most often with 8. And then the 7 is the enthusiast. So when you share your number, will you also share maybe like the title so people can wrap their mind around that too? So Kyle, go ahead.
All right. So I'm still not 100% sure. My wife is sure. She's typed me for a while here, but I'm a 5 wing 6. So the observer or investigator with the 6 wing there. The hardest thing for me to grasp about the Enneagram, just how much you can move through there. So you've got your stress points where you can move backward. You've got your health points where you can move, and you can move into your 6 wing. You can potentially move into a 4 wing. So you can be really all over the place, which I think is a benefit of the Enneagram. It doesn't just pin you down. It doesn't just put you in one single personality type and you can't move, you can't do anything from there. So learning where people can and can't go and where they go in stress. It took a while to grasp, but you can definitely see it if you know what you're looking for now.
That's good.
And what is the dark side or thing about your type that you would like to share with everybody that maybe you don't particularly love?
Probably the lack of energy for things. So type 5s are pretty reserved. The word that they use for it is avarice, and that's not some word that we use very much in modern English language. But avarice, like, is greed, and that's not greed for money, but it's greed for myself and my time, and not wanting to share many aspects of what's going on in my head and in my life. So not having enough energy to do a lot of things that I would like to do, or strengthening the relationships that I could potentially have, just because I need a break, I need to go recharge, I need to get out of here, and that's a pretty strong pull.
It's a great assessment of my college roommate right there.
Yep.
Becky.
Well, Kyle, fives have the least amount of energy of any number on the Enneagram. So,
Yep. Us and nines. Yep.
Yep. After nines. I have a little story about my number. I'll be short.
Yeah. Let's hear it.
So 10 years, I've pretty much known the Enneagram. And I believed hands down, I was a 2. I presented like a 2. I did everything like a 2. And then I got with the spiritual director about 2 years ago, and she was pretty well convinced I was a 3. And I decided I presented like a 3 because my husband pushed me into a 3 for, some things. And because I was in doctorate school. I mean, you got to achieve when you're, in that. And so I decided that I was going to go back to my 2-ness and shed the 3-ness when I graduated. And she was convinced. So here I am helping people with their Enneagram number, convinced I was a 2. And I was in Israel in February, and I watched myself. Have you guys ever watched yourself do something and you're going, what in the world am I doing as you're watching it? And all of a sudden it was like ding, 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 ding. And then I read something about a 3, and everything just absolutely fell into place. And that missing puzzle fell into place in February because I watched myself do something. I was ready to see what I needed to see and could see it at that time. And so a 3 fits me. I can go way back in my life, and I can just see it fit me like a glove. And so even if you think you know it, God sometimes surprises you with understandings about yourself that literally have really, it has been good to kind of come home to myself. So that's my little story about my number. So I am a 3 with a really big 2 wing.
Yeah, that's good. The interesting thing to think about, the idea of coming, the seminary thing being a 3, that's so funny because I think I went through the exact same thing when I went through seminary, and everyone's like, you're a 3. And then I also resonate with what Liz says about the 8s. I think they're the most misunderstood people out there.
Amen.
And so
especially
there was a season.
Woman.
Yeah, especially for a woman.
Yeah.
Especially for a woman, Liz.
Yeah. Well, 8s are wonderful, and 8s are amazing leaders, just misunderstood, wonderful leaders. So, but I resonated with what you said, all 3 of you. That was just interesting stuff. So, but sorry, Lydia, I cut you off. You go back in.
Oh, I was just going to say, just so for people who are listening, 3, the title is the achiever, and 2, because that was a number we hadn't heard yet, is the helper. So I know that because that's my number. I'm a 3 too. So.
Well, and I'm really old. I am way older than all you guys. And pretty much growing up in evangelicalism, women could only be 2s.
Absolutely.
And so of course, that's what I was going to think I was, and that's
you
what you kind of got moving. Yeah. Yep. Okay. So enough of me. There you go.
Did you say that you just reassessed your type in February of this year after 10 years of knowing it?
Yeah, it's not like I reassessed it like I was looking. It was all of a sudden I just watched myself do something. And something opened up that just clicked the pieces into it. And and also something came across my email. And I've been watching my motives. I was watching myself going, the 2 doesn't quite fit with my real motives as, self-awareness grows as you go on in life, and something didn't quite fit. And then all of a sudden I watched myself do something. And it was like, oh my word, there's the piece. So there. That was it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, good for you to be able to change back, because oftentimes millennials are terrified at mistyping themselves. If you mistype yourself and you tell your friends and you back out on it, people freak out on you. So I'm glad
no.
glad you're not scared.
So Becky, what has been the hardest or the dark side for you of hardest for you to grasp in terms of your own personal type being a 3?
Oh, how driven I was and am. I mean, it's just driven. You know, and I look back at my life. Oh my word. So yeah, that part of it is the drivenness of it all.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing. That makes sense. And I don't think we got to hear from you overall with the Enneagram. What is something that has been challenging for you in terms of the whole process of the Enneagram, or like what has been maybe hard for you to grasp or has just challenged you?
Seeing my blind spots can be really challenging and hard. And I'm in that shame triad, so of course it's shaming, you know. And the realization that my blind spots everybody can see, but I can't see them, and that part has been, you know,
Sucks.
Yeah, it does. Yes.
So thanks so much. Okay, so let's get our next sauces going. We're gonna get into the next question here. So let's see what you have. I have a jalapeno hot sauce by S.2. I think that's how you say it. So Danny, why don't you go, and then Liz.
Yeah, it's funny. I said that I wasn't going that spicy. It turns out that I guess I just was going really spicy. So I have one called Akamiso. I do it almost every week, but it's like it's pretty hot. It's like a ghost pepper garlic reaper combo, kind of Asian zing to it. Really tasty, but it will probably hurt my tummy. So, but Liz, what do you have?
Got your classic tapatio. You know, goes well on anything. That's me.
On bologna.
I appreciate you, Liz. You went flavor and consistency. I can get behind that. You went old favorites.
Nice human being, tapatio.
Kyle, what do you got?
Trader Joe's jalapeno sauce. So we'll see how this one goes. Kicking up the heat a little bit here.
I have S.2 hot sauce chipotle. Oh, there we go, Lydia.
Twins.
Yes.
We're such threes. Look at us with our matching. We're so cute.
Oh, I know.
Didn't even know.
I know.
Okay, so while you're getting that sauce going, let's go ahead and put up the next question for you all. So how has the Enneagram affected your relationships? And many of you have touched on it here and there, but we really want to go deeper on this. We want to hear how it's changed them. So Liz, you're up first. How has the Enneagram affected your relationships?
Oh man, I feel like it's changed everything. You know, I remember listening to a podcast with my husband probably, 6 years ago or so, and they started this podcast saying like, okay, we're going to start with the type 8 and type 9. Type 9 is the peacemaker, and they're like, we're going to, 8s and 9s in a relationship because they're the most different. And and I started laughing. That's our dynamic. We're an 8-9. This is good for us. And I think, in particular in my marriage, when I'm in an unhealthy place as an 8, the tendency is for, I'll absorb the space, and I will, I have the tendency of taking other people's voices away, and I just fill up the room and no one else can talk. And, in my really just rough places of disintegration. And on the flip side, the 9, my husband would say like, wow, like having to grab a hold of space to use his voice is like something that's, it's been a growth process for him as well. And so I think like when I'm in a really rough place, like it's really hard. There's like an inner motivation that I'm constantly having to check I'm asking like, who's in the room, who's not in the room, whose voice have I not heard from yet, and trying to leverage the energy that I have for other people. So I think that's been one of the difficult things in a relationship. And yet at the same time, my passion for people, to fight for people, has changed my relationships. And that, like, I'm like the ride or die for a lot of people. I'm like, I'm here for you. Like, if I'm in your corner, I'm in your corner. And like, if you need me to be mad about something on your behalf, I will, like, you know what I mean? So I think it's changed my relationship. And like, I feel like I can step into that voice in a healthy way, and also like know when to, take a step back. And so I think it's affected my relationships just in that, like, I feel like I'm trying to always get to the bottom layer of my own internal motivation. Even the lustiness of the 8, the intensity, and like, being okay, having relationships that are like really intense, like thought partners. When I get in a room with certain people, we could talk for like 6 hours, and just burn the midnight oil, just talking passionately, and so I look for that kind of energy in relationships, and love it when I find it. And then also learning to be okay if things are just ordinary. So I think it's increased my awareness of myself and how I connect with other people. And then in my marriage, of course, it's a huge deal to be aware of, like, when I'm taking up too much space, and when it's time for me to tap out and listen to what Michael has to say, and trying to negotiate that way. And especially with my kids too, I feel like, in particular, because of, the inner child of the 8, nothing will break me down faster than my children. I have a 2-year-old, and their gentleness when I come home from work after a really long day, that I want to sit with them, and there's a reconnection to myself in being able to see their softness and their innocence. So I think it's changed a lot about my relationships, just simply by virtue of having a lens of self-aware. It's a tool for growing in self-awareness. And so it's changed a lot.
Thanks. That's awesome to hear. Thank you. Kyle, what about you?
Definitely echo a lot of that. Just having the awareness of your spouse, and your family members, in-laws, people. The hardest thing, I think, for when you begin the Enneagram journey is not trying to type everyone you see all the time around you. It's just, you've got this new power, this new tool, and you can, like, oh, the so-and-so is a 2, I know that, and so-and-so is an 8, whatever. So trying to dial that back a little bit and not assess everyone for them, that definitely has affected relationships, but also just the knowledge of where I'm coming from, what my motivations are, and then being able to try to align that with my friends and family as well. It makes a big difference when you know somewhat what you're talking about, and getting an idea of someone's internal motivations, even if they might not understand it too.
Yeah, Becky, how about for you? How has the Enneagram affected your relationships?
I actually think it is transformed so many of them. Being able to understand people's motivations and what is important to them allows me a space to love them well, and to actually really change my approach in how I love them and how I accept myself. I think it is probably the one thing that has enabled me to offer compassion to myself and compassion to other people, and understanding what is important to people and what motivates them, why they do what they do. Then you can know how to love them, and you have compassion for them. And I don't know, it's allowed me to have compassion for myself and to accept myself for who I am. And then it gives me a deeper compassion to accept others for who they are and love them for who they are.
Yeah, I do feel that sense of it's increased my compassion, I think, as well. It's a really good word for it, because before, and this is kind of going to be like a sub question from this that I think might be, I hope you'll think it's funny, but before I would think about like the types of people on the Enneagram that would drive me crazy. Like I would be like, there are certain numbers that just trigger me. And I figured it out now. And but with that is because now that I know what I know just about each of the types of people, I'm more compassionate. I'm slower to anger because I feel like I have more empathy because I understand more maybe of where they're coming from. So with that though, let's start. I want to hear from Liz and Kyle and Becky. I want to hear really quick, just kind of fun, which number for you has been the hardest to maybe be in a relationship with? Yeah, just have some fun with that.
Kyle, this is not the time to say your wife's number when it gets to you. I just need you to know that.
Man, I want to, pretend to come across really holy and redeemed and say something like just really profound. But the truth is that any of the types in a really bad place, I dislike all of them.
Yeah, that's true.
And I'm speaking from a place of knowing that 8s are the worst when they are in a place of disintegration. So I'll name that. I think when 5s are in a really unhealthy place, there's a sense of like, you're so detached, I don't know how to talk to you, but it's probably 8s and 5s are connected in the triad. So it's a more like a, I hate the me I see in you situation. I think as an 8, you guys know what I'm talking about. Okay. I think as an 8, like I need to feel people's edges. Like I need to have a sense of like, this is who you are as a person. And like, these are your boundaries. So like 2s who don't draw boundaries are super hard. People who don't stand up for themselves are hard for me. I can get down low with a really broody 4. I'm like, I feel that. I can get cathartic.
That intensity.
Like a 1 who can't laugh at themselves. I mean, so I could go on and on. So I'm not a sanctified human being. I'm going to tell you the truth. There's something like 7s on the fire exit.
Welcome.
Why are you trying to escape this pain right now? Let's get into this. You know what I mean? I'll stop.
Yep.
So good.
That's really funny.
For me, same idea. Anytime someone's in their low side of their self, it can be pretty frustrating. But going back to you, Liz, 8s, I have a hard time with. I've got some pretty big, powerful 8s in my life, and you guys are just so confident and fill the room, and you're so quick on your feet. And I'm like, can we talk about this tomorrow after I have some time to think about it? But
That's really
but like you said earlier there too, if you have an 8 on your side, that's like the ultimate advocate for you too. So it definitely goes both ways.
His mother-in-law is an 8, so, so that's where that's coming from. She can be really awesome to have on your side, but she can be really scary when she's not.
Yes. The ones I have the most problems with are the ones when they're unhealthy, and particularly unhealthy numbers or unhealthy types that are hurting other people, and particularly in deliberate kind of harm. Those are the ones that I really struggle with wanting to strangle.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what's good about this in a lot of ways, right? Like it's there is a lot of room for grace, and it's a spectrum, right? And so like what we realize is like, and I love what you said, Liz, like I hate the sin I see in you, or sin whatever you say, like some of it's a mirror of our own stuff, and where even reflecting on what you said, Kyle, right? Like to make sure that we don't turn this newfound knowledge into a parlor trick where we're typecasting people for the play of our life, but we're using it for this way to really discover ourselves and others more. And Liz, I would love to kick this off as we ask this, is our kind of going on our audience participation part. So if you have any questions, drop it in the comments. But Liz, I think you and I, like, we sound very similar. And I said 7, 8, 8, 7. Like a lot of the things you throw out there are very, very similar to me. Like I hear a lot of those things. Like I want to find people's edges. I want to find people's boundaries. In a lot of ways, it's guys is helping people be better, but sometimes it's like not actually that either. In my unhealthiness, I don't know it's that. And the adventurousness of the 7 is really interesting. But I would say just for anyone who wants to answer this, but if you know it, for those that are listening, like, I mean, not a lot of people know what a wing is. And so, and I've done like a little reading to like try to figure it out. Like, well, it's not like this is your sub one, but maybe it's this like amalgamation of the two that are kind of near each other. Right? So, but maybe any of the three of you, Lydia, if you know this, I'll bow out because I don't know the answer to this, but maybe whichever one wants to hop in first. Do you want to explain just at least the concept of a wing? Because I've seen that pop up a few times in the comments. Would anyone want to jump on that for us?
You're like, Becky, I'm going to vote for you.
Yeah, sounds good.
Well, you know, your wing is just kind of, they're exactly what they, what it's named. It's those numbers right next to you, and you move into that number often, and it helps you. Wings help people. Wings help birds to fly. Okay. And so the wings are helping yourself, your number, to be who it is that you are. And you'll find that you'll lean into one of the wings more. And so, you know, like for me, my 2 wing is really, really strong. But the older I get, my 4 wing, if I learn to move into that 4 space, it offers me a different place to be able to go that I haven't been able to access before. And I need that right now. I need that 4 space. And so wings, all they are is they help you. Okay, so they help you. They're very near. They're very near to what it is that you are. Okay, so it just helps you. That's all. It's not a big deal to know or anything. Yeah. You know, it's just part of a tool to understand yourself.
Yeah.
And for self-awareness, it's the self-awareness which is critical.
Really. And I would add to that, I think people experience their wings differently. I know people who have a pretty balance on either side of their number. I know who have like a really overinflated one side and like a non-existent. And I know people who are like, I don't even know what it is. They're like tiny baby wings, you know? I describe my 7 wing as I call it my itchy 7 wing. My friends know what this means. It means it's time for me to go outside and find the sun and do something really intense. Like the wing is starting to itch. It's time to get out of here, you know? And so I think like even being in tune with that, how that moves me back into a place of integration. Yeah, it's super helpful.
Yeah.
One thing I would add too is you kind of touched on it, Becky, but I've read that the beginning of your life, kind of the first half of your life, you're really camping out in one of your wings. And then as you get older, mature more, change, then you start moving the other side of your number to the other wing.
That's it. Becky, why don't we give you the final word? I know you're about to say something, so why don't you wrap this one up and we'll go on to the next question.
No, that's absolutely true, Kyle. And you know, I'm really into that second half of life, and the needed necessity of learning the value of what's on the other side of me is very helpful, you know, with that. And wings just help you. They help you fly.
Awesome. And so we'll probably do 2 more unless some more pop in here. But one question we got earlier, a little back, I was trying to hunt for it. Is there a great test site that any of you think is particularly good? So I mean, the Enneagram Institute is what I've always used. But for any of you out there, like, do you have any other great resources you see kind of as far as diving into the Enneagram? And I specifically, I don't want to shortchange anyone's livelihood or money, but I think sometimes free ones to dip a toe are cool. But I mean, they're also like, sometimes they're not great. So just as far as resources go, what are the 3 of you kind of dove into, and maybe to throw that out for people?
Yeah, I think the Enneagram Institute, I feel like I always go, I think it's like $12. Maybe I always go back to that one. The one I started with actually was The Wisdom of the Enneagram, that book. I call it like the Enneagram Bible. It's like this fat, chunky book. At the beginning of each chapter, there's like a rundown kind of assessment. That's kind of how I stumbled my way into my type. So that's a really helpful one because it gives you an ability to see kind of questions from each type. So I like that one too, if people feel lost or in between numbers.
Cool.
Yeah, Enneagram Institute was the one that I took. Ian Morgan Cron's got one that's, I think, even more extensive. It's a little bit more expensive as well. So if you take one test and you're like, I don't know about this, and you want to maybe a more in-depth one, there's other ones out there too.
And yeah, the RIT test, which is the Enneagram test, it's $12. It'll give you the full spread of how you type with each of the 9 types. Sometimes that lowest number is very important to know. That's very important to know, and how close you are up there. But another really good way is to get the book that Liz, The Wisdom of the Enneagram. That's a good one. Stabile's The Path Back
Road Back
Home.
to You.
Is it?
Road
Yeah,
Back
The
to
Road
You.
Back to You is good. And sometimes having a conversation with somebody that just to go through that this is what each type, and it's funny, people, you just know where you kind of fit in, what fits, what fits on you like a coat. So that's what I use.
That's awesome. So maybe I have one or two more. A few more popped in there, but so one question I think is really great. So I'm a big, similar to Lydia, with a binder of assessments and whatnot. And I'm a big strength finders nerd. Strengths language is a big deal for me. But I've also taken the DISC, Myers-Briggs, all those things. And I've always explained to people, and I think I might have said this, it's like a spectrum, like a rainbow. There's 500 colors of red. So no 7 is like any other 7. I mean, there's so much uniqueness in this. But someone asked really early on like this. And so it's just wondering, how is it different from some of these other tests? And so I use strength language, and I said, looking at the DISC and Myers-Briggs and strength, I thought it was more of like a spiritual distillation of those things. I saw myself in a more holistic way through it. But from your perspective, what has made it maybe different or stand out? We're not doing a hot thoughts on strengths as much as I love it. And so why are we doing one here? Why is it different?
Because I'm last.
Go first. You started out.
Because it's dynamic. It's not static. And so it's dynamic. And it is absolutely a transformative tool that can be used in your life. And it's holistic. It's actually mind and emotions and your body. And it's an integrative way in which you can begin to understand yourself.
Yeah, I think the spectrums from disintegration to integration, unhealth to health, unredeemed to redeemed. That's being the dynamic nature of that and being able to locate yourself. I don't know. It's Eastern, honestly, in that I think in the West we want to be like, check the box. I think StrengthsFinder does that. It's kind of like StrengthsFinder's like a hammer. It's like, see, you've arrived. Check the box. Here's what I am. And this tradition comes along and says actually, it's like Pandora's box. When you open it up, it's just expensive. The world is bigger, and it's like a window and not a hammer. So that's what I appreciate about the assessment.
Yep, I would agree with that as well. Because once you get your type, then you can go your wing, and then you can go into your subtype, and then you can go to your growth, and it's just as far and as deep as you want to go in the Enneagram, you can.
Yeah, I would say it is fun. It's so true what you just said there a second. That the strength finder is hey, you're right-handed, so let's just be the most dominant righty you can be. And Enneagram is hey, let's explore why you decided to be right-handed. What are the negatives about not being left-handed? It is. There's so much more holistic nature than let's just double down on our strengths. And so. And so, Becky, I'm going to give you this question only, not because I don't think everyone else deserves it, but so that
I have one more thing to say about that other question, though. Just one, just a little one. The other thing that I found really that's different is that the Enneagram can actually give you a picture of Jesus that is whole and complete, and what it actually looks like to be human and divine in the beautiful complexity that Christ is. And you can begin to see Jesus in different and beautiful ways that I hadn't before been able to see. and which it's this growing kind of thing. So you read the scripture and then you think, and so that's just another one of why I think it's different than other personality tools. So, okay.
No, that's so good. And then, so before we go to Lydia for our final question, I'm only asking you this because you kind of alluded to this earlier, but the question was, do numbers change as you go through different experiences in your life? And I just thought maybe if this person wasn't around in the beginning of the stream, but maybe to touch on kind of what you said about evolving from, not necessarily evolving, but like not mistyping, kind of the story you explained, and maybe dive into that a little bit for us.
So numbers do not change, but you can mistype yourself and you can actually go through your life believing that you were something that you weren't. So I believed, even though I was helping other people and teaching other people, that I was a 2. And it was literally only in February. I mean, that was like ages ago, but it really wasn't. I mean, it was like, that I was a 3. And it was a gift from God. It was a gift from him to be able to see myself in a different way. I don't think my number changed, but I think I was given a capacity, and I used my 2 wing. Like it's really tired now. And so I've used it all my life and it's tired.
I can definitely relate to that. With that question. So in my experience, I would have, so if I look back on my childhood, which has been really interesting with the Enneagram, again, being holistic and kind of looking at, it makes you reflect on your childhood as well. Mm-hmm. So looking at your story and your personal experience, like I felt like in my childhood leaning more on my 2 as a helper. Like I was always like wanting to please people, wanting to do things for them, trying to get get that affirmation, and like if I didn't get it back, like what did I do wrong, and kind of maybe holding grudges because I wasn't receiving anything in return. But then like now later in life, I'm realizing, so I discovered that I'm actually a 3 with a wing 2. So I think the wings and your primary number are easy to kind of almost, there might be certain seasons of life where you are operating in one maybe more than the other, has been my experience. But you're not going to be like a 2 and then also, a 7. Like if you're gonna change numbers, it's probably going to be in between your wings. Has been my experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's no hope for us if we're where we're at. You are where you are. And I will say, so I've been doing this show long enough that I should be better at it than I am. I totally skipped a sauce, but I do it like 80% of the episodes on the question ones. I forget it every time. So with that, we're going to move on to our 5th sauce. So you didn't get to build up like you hope. So you're just jumping to whatever your last one is. And so why don't we introduce ours? So I have the Last Dab, 2 million Scovilles, the hottest sauce I have. So it's pretty crazy. But yeah, Liz, what do you have?
Honestly, I'm finding a head cold, so I decided to take it easy. So don't judge me.
All right, I've got just sriracha. Gonna go for it. Get the peppers now.
I have a Caribbean pepper sauce, tropical. So,
all right,
we'll see.
I'm having the habanero, but since I'm asking the question, I'm going to have it after I ask the question because I'm pretty sure it's going to do me in. So it's called the Humboldt hot sauce. I don't really know.
Well, cheers. So. Let's take this thing.
Okay. So for you guys, as the last question tonight, what would you say to someone looking to explore the Enneagram, who's looking to start their journey? What would be some words of advice, encouragement, thoughts that you would want to give? Something maybe that you wish someone would have told you before you started the journey.
That's a great question. I think having someone to process it with is really important. I think whether it's a close friend, someone who knows you, I feel like it's, some of us are external verbal processors. Some people process internally, but I think it's really helpful to have another person who knows you well, even over the course of your life, to reflect some things back to you as you're processing. I would also say if you find that you hit a barrier to growth, or you hit a hiccup along the way, I'll say like push through it. I think the number of times I've kind of set the Enneagram down and come back to it, it's always relevant to my life, where I am, wherever I am, whatever it is I'm going through. And so, yeah, I think there's a sense of sometimes, at least in my circles, I feel like people so like preach the Enneagram that people are tired of it. It's like a broken record. And so it turns a lot of people off, especially when people are typing people. Somebody just asked me today, hey, what do you think that person's type is on my staff? I'm like, I don't do that. I think that people, like discover just the journey on their own. I think that's really, really important. And I feel like there's something robbed when somebody speaks something over you. I'm like, you don't even know. Like, how do you know, like, speaking something over another person like that? So I think like letting it, just like having an element of curiosity toward it and letting it be just that, it's not, I don't know. I think sometimes people get on such a soapbox about the Enneagram that either you feel caricatured as a person. People can feel like actually really condescended to when they feel boxed by it. And I think just like allowing the space of openness and like let it, the number of times I've journaled things out and just like let the Enneagram just chew on me as a person, I think that's where I've seen the most growth, And so I think if there are barriers, pushing through them. And then, I try really hard to not box people in and be like, oh yeah, she's being such an 8 right now. Even if I probably do know, you know what I mean? Like, I think one of my mantras is an 8 that I have told myself repeatedly in my life is like, you might be wrong about that. That's like my tagline, because I think I'm right all the time. So I was like, yeah, but Liz, you might be wrong about that, And so I think allowing, having some things that you come back to, I'm sorry, that like kind of inform your inner growth. Like just push through it, find somebody to talk to process with. I think that's been the most beneficial for me.
Liz, as someone that might be more of an unhealthy 8, have you thought about at least the idea that you might not be wrong? Have you thought about it? It crosses my mind all the time.
Oh man,
I'm wrong about a lot of things. That's my tagline. If I had to tattoo myself tomorrow, that would be it. That's something I need to remember. Like, Liz, you might be wrong about that.
That's a good one. I might have to use that one. Danny Liebarger could use more of that in his life.
I would say know your learning style. So if you're a person who needs to have a face-to-face interaction, it might be beneficial for you to go to someone who is trained in Enneagram, or go to a workshop and get in a room with people who actually know what they're talking about, and they can actually walk you through the journey. If you're introverted like myself and you're like, I'm just going to read some books, that'd be a great place to start from there. But just know the best way for you to approach it and start working off from that direction, because there's tons of ways to get involved in and explore it, but some of them might not be beneficial for your type either.
And I would say you will not be sorry, but it is not an easy path sometimes. No. Being able to see your blind spots and being able to see who you are requires vulnerability. It requires vulnerability, and that's never something that we like dive into with all of our 10 toes and feet. So, but you will not be sorry. You will not be sorry, and God will meet you there. Jesus meets us in the vulnerability, and it just won't be sorry. And Kyle, that was really good. Know what is important to you. Verbal, reading. It's always good to talk with somebody.
Yeah. Well, this has been fun to kind of dive in a little bit more. And I know for me, I think learned a little bit more in this. And that's my favorite thing about Hot Thoughts is I feel like I get to have these conversations, eat wings, and also learn a little bit in the process. So with that, I'll say I just want to thank each one of our guests for joining us. And it's been a fun conversation. You can go back and find all of these and many more on our YouTube page or on our Facebook group and kind of dive back and prepare as we launch into the rest of the season ahead of us. I know, Lydia, we got some fun episodes along the way on lots of things in theology and life and culture and faith. And so we're excited to dive into these. And so, and we did an All-Stars episode last week. And so we'll go back and or last year. And so we'll go back and we'll watch the game tape and we'll see how you guys did. And maybe you get the invite back to come and join us for All-Stars. So we'll see how it went. But I want to thank each of you for joining us and all of you that watched in the stream. And we look forward to seeing everyone back here again next week, Thursday at 8 p.m. Central. So we'll see you guys around.